So, it was a beautiful, typical Balinese evening when I was visiting a good friend of mine over at her house, and we sat outside drinking some herbal tea, watched the sunset as the sky was changing colors. And my friend was looking off into the distance when, in a quiet voice, just loud enough to be heard, she told me a story of what happened to her. It was a story which changed my life at a fundamental level. It happened on Nyepi, a Balinese holidays, 24 hours of no contact to the outside. And she was invited to stay over at her friend's house, and originally it was to be just the two of them. But on Nyepi Eve, the night of the Ogo Ogos, a couple more friends spontaneously decided to join. And Nyepi passed quickly, behind chilling, working on an art project, and everything went as planned. And on the second Nyepi night, my friend decided to have an early sleep, because she really hasn't slept so far. So she went to sleep, alone in a room, and it was maybe around midnight when she slowly became aware that there was someone else in the room, that there was someone approaching her. And all of a sudden, she felt hands upon her body. And her first reaction was to punch out at her attacker. And just as quickly, his first reaction was to hit her and rape her. She was in shock, she was helpless, and it suddenly occurred to her that she didn't know how to protect herself. This could have happened to anyone, and it quite often does. And I'm sure you agree with me that this should never happen to anyone. The whole story literally made my head spin. A stream of questions ran through my mind, and I started questioning, what would have happened if my friend knew how to protect herself? Why wasn't she safe to start off with, especially when she thought she was in an environment where she thought she was with friends? Why are we not safe? And what can we do about it? So I decided to start self-defense classes. Classes where we girls could come together and learn how to protect ourselves, learn how to stand up for ourselves, be empowered. I organized a teacher, I organized a place, I organized funding from the Project Hub. I got the girls together, and at first we were five girls learning how to box and fight, use our voices, learn martial arts moves, in the back of Green School every Wednesday afternoon. And before I knew it, the group Fight Like a Girl was born. And then I realized that there were so many girls, so many moms and daughters who wanted to learn how to protect themselves. I ended up with more than 40 females signed up within a 4 weeks course to learn how to fight like a girl. However, due to the pandemic, COVID-19, I wasn't able to complete the course. But that didn't matter, because those first couple of classes brought us girls together. It showed how strong we are. It taught each and every one of us that we're not alone. It empowered us, because now we knew what to do in such a scenario. But then I started questioning, and I realized that this is only the short-term solution, only the peak of the iceberg. And I started questioning, why do these situations happen in the first place? Let's go back to my friend's story, and let's look at it from his perspective. I don't know him, but from what I've been told, he wasn't a loud character. He was young, he had brown hair, had a kind face. And I wondered, did he ever learn about communication, consent, empathy, equality? Did he understand the misconceptions in porn and the unrealistic situations they present? Would he have made the same choices if from an early age he had robust relationship/sex education classes? We may never know. But what we do know is, at the end of the day, we're all accountable for our actions. And that there's always more to the story, and that we need to look at the full picture. We're humans. We're complex individuals who are product and outcome of our culture, education, family structure, wealth status, environment. He is responsible for his actions, but who is all to blame? We need to look at education and stopping these reoccurring crimes. Because for how long are we going to accept that 1/3 of us women are going to be assaulted and that 1/6 of men are going to be assaulted? How many girls and boys have to suffer through trauma before we wake up and make a change? The United Nations believes that relationship/sex education is the first step to stopping sexual violence. However, due to a multitude of race, religion, cultural belief, relationship/sex education remains a controversial subject. For many countries, this form of education doesn't exist. And for some, it's even taboo. For many programs that do exist, they're out of date and only teach anatomy and absence only. Relationship/sex education is much more than sex. It's learning about social norms, discovering who you are, understanding our human bodies and human rights. Perhaps we do need to rename it, rebrand it, and make it more universally acceptable. But there is clear evidence that countries with relationship/sex education classes have lower rates of sexual violences. For example, England and Netherlands. Both countries have the same social economic level. However, in Netherlands, this form of education is mandatory, where they teach in first grade upwards about emotions, honesty, communication, consent. Whereas in England, this form of education isn't mandatory, resulting in higher rates of rapes, sexual assaults, and teen pregnancies. Recognizing the importance of relationship/sex education made me reflect on my own relationship/sex education here at Green School. Green School, just like many other schools all around the world, follow the United Nations International Guidance of Sexuality Education Curriculum. It's free, it's accessible, and it's age appropriate. It's a huge document that focuses on what should be taught between ages 5 and 18. It focuses on us as human beings, our reproductive system, healthy relationships, values, gender, rights, pleasure, and skills for well-being. I remember in first grade at Green School, they focus on, in first grade, they focus on emotions, honesty, communications, concepts of consent. They may do things, for example, like, may I hug you? Or how do you feel like if someone takes your snack? In middle school, they focus on things like puberty, feelings, boundaries. As you may know, middle school is the time of change in a children's body. And therefore they talk about how to respect each other. I remember in high school, we focused on what do we want in a relationship? What does love mean to us? We learned about boundaries, how to follow through on our voices, how to follow through on our choices, and how to use our voices. We learned about our rights. The problem is, however, that many schools all around the world don't have this form of education. And this is a result of sexual violences. According to James Hamble from Yale School of Public Health, he points out we're sexual beings, and that learning about sex, our bodies, pleasure, risk, and consent is essential for a stable and functional society. I propose that we rebrand and rename relationship/sex education, change certain aspects, and make it more accessible to everybody. That we do it now. That we make it a mandatory subject, equally important as math and English classes. We have the right, and everyone around the world has the right to this form of education. This isn't revolutionary, and it's not hard, and it's not scary. So, it's the end of the year. And I'm spending again time with my friend, like usual, drinking our herbal tea, reflecting on the craziness of the year. And I was proud of the successful self-defense classes and all of the hard work I put into everything. We both noted that self-defense is extremely fun, but only the short-term solution. We both agreed that we all need to look at the full picture, and that he is responsible for his actions, but that he isn't all to blame. We believe that as a race, we need to learn how to live together, work together, and respect each other. And the first step to doing this is through proper relationship/sex education classes. This form of education needs to become as fundamental as breathing and eating. It may not solve all sexual violences, but if it prevents one person from facing such a crime, it is all worth the effort. Dankeschön. Do I walk off? Okay.